stick or something when the mother wasn't looking. Well, I used to have one family that came in every Sunday, George Mitchell family. He had two nice little daughters. And one day they came in late, and I had a chance to go clean up a little, and the little girl, the house was full, and as they came by my steam table, the little girl said, "Look, Daddy, look, Mama, Perry's got on a clean shirt." Well, I really enjoyed being in business in old Baytown, but it came to an untimely end when I had a mammoth fire on December the 28th, 1968, which was almost 31 years after my father had opened. I left a lot of good friends there. I still live there, and I'm afraid that my father would be turning like a rotisserie in his grave if he knew that I had to pay off $8,000 worth of taxes he was in arrears when he died, and that also now I'm entering my 4th term on the city government and hated so bad.
Next we have Max and Natalie Altman, who are an important part of the Texas Avenue scene when it was the nucleus of commercial Baytown. And I don't know which one would like to start, but I'll leave that up to you.
Thank you, Aubrey. It's a pleasure to be here. I know that there are a lot of old-timers, and I guess I consider myself as an old-timer too. But we came here in 1941. It's difficult to follow an attorney and someone like Zenobia and a politician. They asked me to, Max and I, to really talk about Texas Avenue. But before I do that, Max and I were in our early 20s, so you can start asking us about what our age would be. When we came here, Max and his father came down to look at the E. Aaron store. And I happened to be visiting in San Antonio when I got a long distance call. That was my home. And Max said, "Guess what, honey? We bought a store in Goose Creek, Texas." Well, my parents, they just about had fit. Where in the world? For somebody to come from a place like Mahia and then go to Goose Creek. But one story that I do have to tell you is when I first came here, of course, there was no place. It was a booming town in 41. There was no place to live, and Max was staying at the Del Monte Hotel. And of course, I was staying there too. But we finally found a place to live, which was at Miss Burnett's on Pierce, I guess it was, next to the funeral home. We just had a room and a kitchen and bath. And I was having some problem with one of these string lights, and I went out there. Miss Burnett was working into her yard, and I said, "Miss Burnett, I need for you to fix this light." And he said, "Well, I'll have to tell my husband. He's working graveyards." And I said, "Oh, does he dig graves at the funeral home?" So I didn't know what that was. But I actually didn't enter the Texas Avenue business until we moved into the Pruitt building. So what we are going to do, Max and I are going to take a stroll down Texas Avenue. I'm going to sort of take us back a little bit before the time that I was here, that we came, which actually I think that Baytown, I may stand corrected, was Boomtown in 1920, is that right? Anyway, that's what I found in the files of the Baytown Sun in our real good library. And Baytown was called, I think, Newtown then. It was Goose Creek, but it was Newtown. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the south side which was the odd numbers, and Max will take the even side. Sort of like when we were in the store, I stayed on my side, which was the ladies' side, and he stayed on the men's side. We never got in each other's way, so that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to start with Wilkenfields. I think that is a landmark because they're still in business, and so many on Texas Avenue are not. I understand that it was that right there at that corner there was a wooden building, and it was a general merchandise store and a furniture store that was owned by Abe Aaron. And Morris Wilkenfield came in 1917 to work for his uncle. And in 1935, they built the present building. And I understand that B. Wilkenfield commutes from Houston practically every day and is still running the business. Morris passed away some years ago. Then across from the harbors on the corner of Maine and Texas was a filling station. To my knowledge, there was always a filling station there. And beginning the 200 block was E.S. Katharina Ford Agency, later become Aaron Rosenzweig's department store. Aaron was always known by his fellow merchants and all his friends as Red Rosenzweig. He was a brother of Abe's, and he and his wife Ida ran the store. When they sold out, it became Sherwin-Williams. It was managed by Otis Graham, and then a vending machine business, which I think is still there. I'm told by many of the old-time residents that that was the old Arcadia Theater.
House.
What?
It's called the box and then it became the house.
Palace? Well, I may have to have some corrections here.
Better known as the goat house.
Is what?
The goat house.
Well, that's good. I like this audience participation. That's what we're here for. But I understand that they always had some real good old-time cowboy movies there. Later, that became Charlie Marshall's furniture store. Charlie was a real peppy sort of a fella, and his hobby was photography. And I believe everybody that came in there to buy a piece of furniture, he took their picture. I know we still have some pictures that he always took of our children. Next was Ira Guberman's, and he was one of the oldest merchants, and he came before 1920. We were told that he was given the land by the city with the understanding to build a nice brick building. He and Jay Guberman were brothers, and Ira and his wife Selma ran the store. He always had many, many stories to tell, and when we first moved here, of course we were across the street, and he used to come over there and always talk to Max. I guess give him a few pointers on how to run his business. Next was a jewelry store building. It was owned by Guberman. It was called Clark's Jewelry. Now this is all before my time. I said, with the help of a lot of my friends who lived here, like Odina Childress, and I called Mabel Black, and some of the ones that really remembered, they helped me on some of this before I came. They said it was a Clark's Jewelry. There was also an optometrist, and they sold eyeglasses. The building later became the Style Shop. According to the files and history, the Style Shop was originally in the old Ilfrey grocery store across the street in just a 12-foot front. And then the Style Shop expanded in 1929. It was run by Sadie and Harry Blum, who came from Sour Lake and then to Barbers Hill and then to Goose Creek. Then later, Helen and Al Mellinger joined them until they left several years ago to their present location on Garth Road. Next was the fashion store, which was a kind of a ready-to-wear store. And this was owned by Louis and Esther Rocktop. And Louis Rocktop was a brother to Hannah Edelman, who had a shoe store across the street. And of course, one of the big landmarks was Harry's Drugstore. It was a most popular gathering place. I think a lot of people used to go down and have lunch there, and Stella would be behind the fountain and making her famous chicken salad sandwiches and fermented cheese sandwiches, and all the merchants would gather and sit there and say, well, how's your business today? Compare notes. Of course, Garrett was always behind the prescription, and there was also Doc Hill, and of course we can't forget that George King had a jewelry counter, and he was a watch repairman. I believe you mentioned that there was Harvey's Hardware. I believe that was the next store on the corner, which was ending the block, and A.C. Drew worked there. Later, that location, you said, became the Baytown Hardware, and we couldn't recall who were the people who ran that. They were good friends of the Drews.
Cousin Morris, what?
Cousin Morris. That's right, that's right. Then after that, it became a department store owned by Ike Lerner, who moved from Old Baytown. And that was later sold to Meyer Brothers, and then it became Lloyd's Pharmacy. And then it just went. There's nothing there now. Next block, corner of Texas and Asheville, was the Pruitt Building, which was the Citizens Bank. And later it would become Max Altman's Ladies and Men's Apparel. The ladies department was leased from us by Allison Feinberg for 5 years when they had moved across the street to become the House of Fashion. We had the entire store, that's where I came into the picture. And when the Feinbergs moved across, well, we took over the ladies department, and we had the complete ladies and men's apparel. And Max came home and said, I had to quit teaching piano and step into the store, and he went with me to New York, and he said, I'm going with you one time. And it was more or less a sink or a swim. I stayed in the store and worked hard, and we had the first bridal department. And I must tell you this, of course we were in the building of the Citizens Bank. So upstairs we had the big vault. So when I went into the bridal business, I decided that'd be a good place to keep the bridal dresses that were sold, so that if the place would be burned down, the girls could still get married. We were there until 1968, and we were the first store to go out of business. And we have been accused of saying that we were the ones who started the chain reaction. And we hope that we hate to see Texas Avenue the way it is, but we saw that, in other words, we really had planned to get out and pursue both of what we really wanted to do. Our next door neighbor was Drew's, where A.C. and Thelma owned a gift shop, and they were always wonderful neighbors. And not only were our neighbors in town, but they were our neighbors where we live now. Then after that was the Bo Peep shop, children's clothing, and that was owned by Ann Wallace and Irene McGregor. And it's now the famous brand shoe store, and it's owned by the Summers. Then the Tri-Cities Cafe. Well, I suppose that was not any competition to yours because you were in a different town. But it was another meeting place for all the merchants, and it was owned by Frenchie and Albert Kaiser. All I can say is that when we first came here, Texas Avenue was a busy place, and the Tri-City Cafe was really. Then there was Moore Shoe Store. That was owned by Silas and Myrtle Louise Moore. They originally leased the shoe department from the Kilpatricks, which was a dry goods store across the street. And Myrtle Louise, they were in business a long time. They were one of the last ones to go out of business there. Then next was Sumner's. That was owned and operated by Mose and Joe Sumner. And I think Mose was known as one of the great merchants, and he was certainly an asset to the town. They bought the store from A.M. Thomas, which was originally a department store. Then Sumner's sold out to Payne Brothers, which was Sam and Leon and Harry. I know I've got to hurry up because I have to get my husband. And the next was Wainscott's, the 5 and 10 store, which became Black's Pharmacy, that was run by Lambert, Cone, and Black. And they moved from the location across the street, which became Robson's, later solely owned by Black's Pharmacy, then became Bell Brothers. Then we're coming to the 300 block, which was the light company, which became TSO. And upstairs was the Masonic building. And then there was Kelly's Red and White food store. Then an ice cream store, and a vacant lot, which later became the Citizens Bank. And then, of course, the library, which then was a county library. I could go on with stories about Texas Avenue, but all I can remember is it was a busy 3 blocks always. Those years you could go down the street and you'd know everybody. And really fond memories. I wish that we could bring it back. Thank you.
Well, I've got most of the punches in here already. But when I arrived at Baytown, it was the Goose Creek then, it was about the middle of June of 41. And we completed the inventory of a store, which I later bought out, and opened for business under our own name, June the 10th, 1941. Arriving here from Mahia, Texas, Limestone County. And coming in about the middle of June, it was raining when we hit Houston. It rained the rest of June, it rained all of July, rained August and September. And I said, if it ever stops raining in this town, I'm moving out. Because they took mules to the Texas Avenue at that time was a dirt and clay street. And when it rained, it took a team of mules to move the cars. It wasn't until C.Q. Alexander was elected mayor that they paved Texas Avenue. This is the situation in Goose Creek when I first arrived. And I'm going to take the north side of Texas Avenue with the even numbers. Starting on the corner of Texas and North Main was a service station operated by Frank Smith. Mr. Smith, by the way, only passed away a few months ago, so he was really an old timer here. Let's see where. Later, where this service station stood, is now the new Chamber of Commerce building on that corner. corner of Maine and Texas, north of Maine and Texas. Next door was Harbor's Cafe. Old man Harbor, Jeff Harbor operated the cafe there. And since this time, it has changed now to the Rooster Cafe, which is still in operation. Next door, still standing after some repairs, is the Southern Pacific Railroad Station, which is in deplorable shape now. And we cross the street now on Commerce Street and get into the 100 block of Texas Avenue, which Claude Smith owned the building on the corner. And he had about 6 small offices and retail spaces in that particular complex. Next door was a little dress shop called Altman Cherry's Dress Shop. And she made homemade dresses, took them in the shop to sell. She didn't buy from manufacturers. About a year later, the war years came on, and I bought the business from Altman Cherry, and we added some new lines of ladies' wear and renamed the store as the Junior Miss Shop, which operated all during the war years. And next door to the dress shop was Duke Jones, had a barber shop next door, and with him his associate was Bodart. But believe it or not, Bodart still shining shoes, but it does have a new manager now. And next door was what we call the Texas Club, was the beer joint. And that place is still under operation now, but it's under a new owner now. Next door to the Texas Club was Altman's shoe store. He operated a ladies' shoe store, sold ladies' shoes. Next door to the Altman store was S.W. Woolworth company. We had a 50-foot front, variety store with a lunch counter. And when it first opened, O.T. Manning was the manager of this place. And Mr. Manning just passed away a few years ago in Houston. Over Glen Elfrey operated a 60-foot front building. There were about 3 15-foot buildings with petitions in it. She operated a grocery store at this place. Later she converted it to a hardware store. And in this store was a balcony upstairs, which Dora Bosley operated a beauty shop in this place. And Dora, by the way, has been married a couple of times since then, and she's now living in Houston, still living. Next door to the Elfrey building was Jacob's Jewelry. And Jacob's Jewelry, the only last owner was Marvin Jacobs. And he's now living in San Diego, California. Of course, that store was sold out to someone else. And next door to Jacob's Jewelry was 121 West Texas Avenue. That was E. Aaron's men's store. And that year I came to Baytown with $14,000 in the hole, didn't have a dime. And we purchased the E. Aaron store. And I made several trips back to Mahale, Sarah, home store there, which was a building about the size of J.C. Penney was lately. And I would bring merchandise from the Mahale store to Goose Creek store. And we opened for business on Juneteenth. And my first customer was a man by the name of Ray Adams. He worked at Exxon. He was one of the first charge customers that E. Aaron's had. And I remember he coming in the store and wanted to buy something and said, I want to charge it. Well, I didn't know him from John Doe, but Ms. Aaron left the charge book there. We looked it up. He was a good customer, so we let him have it. And as the war years were on, the building had a real nice front, but it was terrible on the inside. Most of it was homemade fixtures. So They had ceiling fans and incandescent lights. You used to pull a string, custom lift, you pull that string down, you pull another faller. After being in there a short time, we air conditioned the building. I think it was the second air conditioning unit in Goose Creek then. I think Tri-City Cafe had air conditioning, and the picture shows all had washed air, or what we call air run through water. But we had the second air conditioned building, put in new fluorescent lightings, and changed the inside. It wasn't really a first-class door. We took the prison bars off the front door. But at that time, they say that Baytown was wild and woolly, and the Aarons had iron bars on the front door, so we took the iron bars off. Next door to me at that time was Woods Pharmacy, and that was a Walgreen agency. Mr. Woods had a drugstore there and a little bar where you could eat sandwiches and drinks. And next door to the cafe was another cafe next to Walgreens, but that cafe couldn't make it and eventually closed. And the people who moved in after that was the Tom McCann shoe store came into Baytown at that time.
That was Bristol where Altman Terrace.
Oh, that was the Christmas.
Christmas thing. We didn't last. Yeah, it didn't last long. And then Tom McCann moved in, and the manager of the store was a young kid. We got to be real friendly, and I had kids selling all his shoes for, I think, $3.30 was about the highest price you could pay for a pair of shoes. Then on the corner was the First National Bank. Was there on the corner. When we came to Baytown, of course my wife didn't come with me at that time, my father and I came in. I had a letter from our bank in Mahia, but I was supposed to do business with the Citizen National Bank in Baytown. They had a capitalization of $3 million. First National Bank had $1 million. While we were taking inventory with Sile Aaron, we had the shades pulled down. Somebody knocked on the doors. And I said, should we open it? Sile Aaron said, go ahead and open it. So I opened the door and a man walked in, stuck his hand out and said, I'm Willie Bush. I'm president of the First National Bank. I want to welcome you to Baytown. We'd like to have your account. So I looked at my dad, and I know I had the letter. I was supposed to go to the Citizen Bank. I said, Mr. Bush, let me talk to my father. He said, okay. So we talked a few minutes, and I came back and said, well, I came to Baytown, 15,000 holes, so I couldn't lose much. I didn't have anything to lose. So we did business with Willie Bush. And of course, the war years came on and business was good. You really didn't need a banker to borrow money at that time because you could sell everything you could get hold of. But Mr. Bush was real nice to me, and his personnel, Woo Woo Weaver, and who just passed away recently, and Oscar Doobie, who's still working at the First American Bank now, 2 days a week. He has charge of the lock boxes. Moving across the street now to the 200 blocks, Joseph Guberman had a 25-foot front store. He had an apparel store, and upstairs was a hotel, Guberman's Hotel. And next door to Mr. Guberman's building was Culpepper's Furniture. At that time, it was a 50-foot front building. And he also had a balcony. And later on, they took over the corner and used it all for a 75-foot front store. When Culpepper moved out, Louis Levine, the Levine family moved in, opened up a bargain store in that particular location. When he went out, they they recovered the archway between both buildings, and the Feinbergs moved in from, well, they originally from New York. They had a leased apartment in some shoe store in Houston. Crump and Tuck. They owned it. They leased it from a farm in Tennessee. And the house is fast, and moved out, after moving out of my store, moved across the street, the 25-foot building, part of that. And when they moved out on Pruitt Street, they closed up, and Merledes Moore and her daughter opened a dress shop called Cage after they moved out. Next door was a little jewelry store called Shaw's Jewelry Company. That had approximately 15 feet of frontage in the Abe Rosenzweig building, which was a 50-foot front. And Shaw's had 15 feet for a small jewelry store. And Abe Rosenzweig at that time operated the economy store. And the jewelry store was later bought out by Irving Ryder and Homer Shelton. They bought the jewelry store out. Ryder had moved to Dallas, and Homer Shelton is still living in Baytown. He's in pretty bad shape, but he's still living. Later on, Rosenzweig took that 15 feet and added to his store, giving a full 50-foot front. Next door was a theater called a Texan Theater, and didn't operate too long after we were here. The building became vacant, and Rosenzweig leased the building and put in his ladies ready-to-wear department in this particular building and called it Town and Country. And they cut out an archway between both buildings so it wouldn't be too far to go around. Next door to the Rosenzweig complex was a bookstore operated by Mr. and Mrs. Bill Pewtermore at a bookstore. And as time went on, times changed, the building became vacant. J.C. Penney moved into Baytown at that time and took that space at 50-foot front. And they came in at that time, and Lloyd Jones was his first manager right here at that time. On the corner now of Penny's at that time was a drugstore called J.D. Roeder Drugstore. Later that was bought out by Combs Pharmacy, took over. And later on, the Black brothers bought the pharmacy. And later on, they moved across the street to a 50-foot front, and Robinson Jewelry took that particular corner and been there until just about a year now. They moved out. So that's all vacant. We cross the street, we get into the 300 block of Texas Avenue, and there was a taxi stand on the corner, and Wimpy had a hamburger and hot dog stand right next door. Remember that thing? That's your mother?
Not to say Wimpy.
Oh, yeah, Wimpy had a hot dog hamburger stand. And next door to this stand was the original Chamber of Commerce building was there. And next door to the Chamber of Commerce was the Mallory's Beauty Shop. Then in came in S.H. Crest and Company, moved in with a 50-foot front, with a nice modern store. Next door to the Crest's building was a dress shop, 25-foot shop called Modal Day Dress Shop, a chain of women's wear. Next door to Modal Day was L.L. Welke, had a GE appliance store. And Sal Aaron had a retail store there on the corner. He moved around quite often. Going across the street now, in the 400 block of Texas, was a 75-foot building called Waring Grocery Store. Waring Grocery Store. And on the corner, there's a two-story building joining it. And the upstairs, I believe, was the Elks Club.